Ken in Ticonderoga, New York. Hey, Ken, you wanted to get back to Ray Rice.
Yeah. In the same summer that the NFL decided to crack down on hands to the face, isn't it interesting that they basically gave Ray Rice a pass for aggravated assault?
And he punched his fiancée in the face. So had he done that on the football field, it would have earned him a year's suspension? I mean, it's a fairly major thing, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm not all that familiar with NFL rules.
And, well, this summer they decided to crack down on receivers being bumped off the line and issued, a record number of penalties during the preseason to get these guys to ease up on the receivers. Again, compare and contrast.
Right.
Ag assault, slap on the wrist, hands to the face in a violent sport, 15 yards times cost you the game.
Right. And what was Ray Rice's position with the Ravens?
Running back.
Great
okay. Running back.
So he was not a receiver.
No, great running back.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to what you were talking about before, and it's patriarchal societies versus matriarchal societies. I didn't know that about the Iroquois Confederation. Makes a heck of a lot more sense than letting a bunch of bozo guys run the show.
Well, and in fact, when Franklin brought these guys to the Constitutional Convention, John Adams was there, and this is in my book on equal protection. You can read the actual letters. Abigail Adams, John Adams' wife, who was the second First Lady of the United States, but this was before even Washington had become president. They were writing the Constitution. Abigail Adams wrote a letter to her husband. She was in Virginia, Maryland, wherever she was, and he maybe actually Massachusetts. I think she was. She was outside of Boston, and he was down in Philadelphia. And she wrote a letter to him and said, "Please do not forget the ladies, and in other words, make sure that this Constitution gives women rights." And he wrote back saying, "You can depend that we will not give up our male prerogatives." And then she wrote back to him saying, "If you men do that, you shall see a revolution on the part of the women." And so they did not write the word male into the Constitution. There were numerous states in 1789, when the Constitution was ratified and the United States began, that allowed women to vote. And it was over the next 40 years that the vote for women was stripped on a state-by-state, municipality-by-municipality basis until by 1830 there was no place in the United States where a woman could legally vote. But it wasn't in the Constitution, and it didn't get written into the Constitution until the 14th Amendment in the 1870s. And the 14th Amendment says that the number of representatives, that will be based on the number of male electors, the male voters in the states. And Elizabeth Cady Stanton aggressively, and Susan B. Anthony aggressively opposed the 14th Amendment, not because they didn't think that African Americans should have equal access to the legal system, which is basically what the 14th Amendment's all about, but because it has the word male in it twice. And Elizabeth Cady Stanton said, if you put the word male into this dictionary, into this Constitution, it will take 100 years to get it out. And that was 1873 that thing was put in, and I think it was 1974 that the first really serious with teeth, workplace discrimination against women law went into place. So it was certainly the year that that the federal government made it illegal for credit card companies to refuse to give single women credit cards, which was common practice up until 1974. My own wife, Louise, could not get a credit card in her own name, and until she got married, and then it had to be in my name. So I remember those times. It's a bizarre tale.
And full circle, when you treat people like property, you can very easily cross the line and treat people badly.
Yes, and in fact, you more often than not will. I mean, if anything, the history of slavery, the history of violence against women in this country, or just the removal of rights. I mean, this is the essence of ISIS, right? This is the essence of the Taliban. Put women in the burqa. It's interesting. There was some photographs that have recently been colorized, and it makes them so much more real. These photographs from the late 19th century, the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. There was like about 30 of them that were on Democratic Underground last week, and over the weekend, Louise and I were looking at them. And there was a picture of two women walking down the street in New York City in 1890. And women did not have the vote at that time, and there were all these laws. Women could not own property. Women could not execute a will. Women could not sue in court. Women basically had no rights at that point in time. And these two women, this was on Fifth Avenue. It was next to Central Park. And these women were dressed. They had hats on, so their heads were covered. And they were dressed in these long dresses. They were very fashionable, but they went all the way down to their wrists, and their dress went below their shoes. So you literally, the only parts of these women you could see were their face and their hands. And I was like, how is this different from Saudi Arabia right now? It's like, we have a history of saying to women, sorry, you cannot, how dare you? This is just like this little girl in this high school, her skirt was an inch too short. Oh my God, you may distract the men. It's all about the men. So. And
that's right where the Republicans want to take us, not to the 1950s, the 1850s.
I agree. And in fact, actually, quite literally, because they want to roll back the consequence of the Civil War, which is a strong federal government, and they want to go back to a weak federal government and strong states, the whole states' rights thing. Ken, excellent points. Thank you for the call.